All right, let me just see if I can also chat. Where are you? Come to me, chat.
So on your, did you find it?
No.
So on your PowerPoint, above, it's kind of like this hover thing. If you have to put your mouse above where it says you're sharing your screen, and there might be a drop-down menu that comes.
Let me check.
Okay.
I have the drop down. I just don't see the chat. I've got I can see the participants. Thanks for being patient, everyone.
Is there a triple dot?
There is a triple dot. It says that I have 4. I've got, oh wait, yeah, there is a chat option there. Thanks, friends. Awesome. Okay, I think I'm set up now. I can move forward. So I will try to keep an eye on the chat. So if I keep looking this way, that's what I'm doing. I'm checking the chat. What else? I've got my phone down here that I'll be checking. I've got ginger, orange, lemon water that I'll be drinking. So I think that's my orientation to my surroundings here. And I'm sorry about the speckles of light that keep coming in through. It's still light here, so that's nice. All right, welcome everyone. We're going to be talking about public speaking this evening, I suppose late afternoon for maybe some people. So before I jump in to the actual presentation, I just want to take a second, and it's important. This topic is important to me for a lot of reasons that we'll talk about. And there's a lot of content. There's actually so much content that I gave poor Erin 2 sets of slides. All of the slides from this presentation and an entire set of slides that includes a little bit more about how to design your slides and things like that I wanted people to have access to if they could. So each second in my time with you is really important, but I think that the next 2 slides are incredibly important in this time. So what you should see on your screen, however you want to describe it, a sparkler, a spark, maybe fireworks, something like that, right? I see sparks. And for me, some individuals behave like sparks, meaning they not only are amazing and beautiful and brighten a dark sky, for example, but they also help catch other things on fire. And I think it's important that we take a moment to acknowledge these 2 amazing individuals who I believe are sparks in our field. They don't like to have a lot of attention on them, but too bad, because I am presenting, so I get to choose, so haha. But in the time that I've known Erin and Kristen, they have done some incredible things for our field, and I think we're very fortunate to have folks like them in our field to help support individuals, to push things forward, to help keep us in check with ourselves and connected with one another. So Kristen and Erin, thank you so much for all of the work that you both do and for the opportunity to present today. So chat them in some love. There's no harm in throwing some love in the chat for Erin. ARN, is that correct, Erin? I just pulled this off of a public website because I did not ask for permission to use their pictures because I was pretty sure they'd be like, don't put it in there. So I just did it anyway. So yes, ARIN, please, when you're communicating.
That looks like LinkedIn.
It is.
I don't think I've gone and changed that yet, so I'll make sure that's on my list to do.
That's an EO for you to go change that. Awesome.
Thank you.
And I should back up and just say, just so everybody hears this and is comfortable with this, and we make space for this. I'm Tyra Sellers. I'm the Director of Ethics at the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. Although I'm not presenting in my official capacity tonight, my pronouns are she, her. A lot of the information I'm talking about tonight comes from this study, so I need to thank my amazing colleagues, Dr. Heineke, Dr. Juanico, Dr. Valentino, and Dr. me, Tyra Sellers. So this isn't out yet. I think it's currently under review or something like that. Reviewer 2 is probably like giving us some feedback. Who knows? I don't know. Okay, and then we celebrate Erin and Kristen again. Yay, got it twice. All right, this is my official disclaimer. This presentation does not represent an official statement or position of the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. So it's really important that people understand that, because I'm also my own person outside of my role at the BACB, and I'm free to have my own opinions and say my own things, and they shouldn't be taken as official statements. So anything that you hear in this talk, don't repeat that as, well, I heard from the board, blah, 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 because that's not the connection. Okay, so for participation, I do like a rowdy crowd. Please feel free to chat in or unmute yourself and share something. I will, like I said, do my best to keep an eye on the chat. So lots of participation is great. We're also going to try using Poll Everywhere. I'm going to have to manage exiting this and going to the web. So have a browser available or your smartphone available, and we'll see how that works. If it doesn't work, then we're just going to get real rowdy and old school, and you guys can unmute yourself and shout it out, or you can type it in, and it'll be great. And I think we're going to have one soon. So we're going to use Poll Everywhere. If folks aren't familiar with it, it's really easy to use. Basically, you'll just go to the link and you'll be able to participate, or you can text directly. So it'll give you a number that you text to and a little code. It's like Tyra Sellers 477 or something, and then you'll be able to participate. I tested it. Oh, by the way, my internet connection is unstable, so we'll see how that goes. All right, so here's our first Poll Everywhere poll. So we'll see how this works. I can make it full screen. So what you're gonna do is go to poll with a capital P. Well, I probably doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm old. I don't know how this new technology crap works, but pollev.com/Tyra Sellers 477. Or you can text. So you can text to 37607, and you would just text that code Tyra Sellers 477, and then you'll be able to participate. So it's active. It's active. I'm going to go full screen. And what you're going to do is type in whatever words. By the way, if you type in more than one word, it will separate them, because we're going to build a word cloud. So if you have a phrase, don't put any spaces in. Feel free to put in as many answers as you want. I'm going to actually take a picture, because I often will use these images in other presentations. So just type in what kind of words can you use to describe how you feel, or any covert verbal behavior that you engage in around public speaking. If I said, okay, Erin, tomorrow you have to give a presentation, or okay, Stephen, because I can see you right now, you've got to give a presentation. What does that make you feel? What do you think? So we'll give it a bit of time. Again, you can type in multiple things. So maybe you think it's both exciting and horrifying. You can type both of those in. There's no limit. I think 700 responses or something. So go for it. And you can see if people are typing in the same word, if you're familiar with word clouds, sort of an interesting data collection, if you're willing to accept it as data collection, but the words that have more frequent responses will get larger. So a lot of folks feel nervous, feel that it's exciting, feel anxious, feel anxiety, think it's an opportunity, excited, exciting. What other words are getting bigger? These are awesome. Crippling, oh, won't. But also empowering. Roller coaster. Oh, these are great, you all. Thank you. And thanks for your honesty and being able to put this out there. Oh, some of these make me feel so bad. I love butterflies, whoever put butterflies in. I don't know how crap fits in there, but I love it. Sweaty, I see sweaty. Sweaty is kind of big. A lot of people feel sweaty. Leader, imposter, that's an interesting one, and that one's getting pretty big. And I see syndrome, so there must be 2 imposters in there too. Amazing. Okay, as it starts to settle down, I'm going to take a picture if y'all are okay with that. I mean, I don't know why I'm asking. It's not like I'm looking at the chat to see if someone's like, no, don't take a picture. This is so great. Self-doubt, stuck, stupid. There are some more generally considered positive things in there. Someone put what to wear. That's no joke. Sometimes that can be a difficult thing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this, although I think you can continue to submit if you want. I have apparently lost my mouse. It might be on my other screen. We're going to get through this together, everyone. Wait, I think I saw it. Did you see it? Stop laughing at me, Erin. This is being recorded, you know. No, literally,
exactly,
you all.
Perfect. Sometimes, you're on a Mac, right? Yes. So sometimes it's like this hidden screen over to the side. If you're sharing your screen, it might, I don't know. There you go.
I clicked. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm okay. Y'all can see my screen now, right? Okay.
Yes.
I don't know what happened. We're good. Okay. So you all saw the words that you put up there. There were a lot of words to describe physiological responses and thoughts and things like that. So here's another word cloud. If y'all can see this right now. Deborah, it is so, like, doing the word clouds is so fun, and you can do a free, this is poll everywhere, you can do a free account. You can only get up to 40 responses, I think. But there are other word cloud, if you just Google word cloud, there are a bunch of word cloud generators that you can use. So I want you to just take a quick second and look at the one that's up right now. So you can see tension, anxious, nervous, afraid, surprisingly nervous, butterflies. Those are the biggies. Fear of public speaking. And we're going to do another poll. Okay, so we're going to see what happens, because apparently I did not lose my cursor. It was there all along. I just didn't know to click. So here's another one that I'm going to ask you all to do. Activate. I'm going to make it full screen. Who do you think gave me those previous responses? Where do you think I got them from? So do you think I don't want to bias anybody. I'm going to let you all put that in there. Who do you think I captured those responses from? So just like you all provided those responses for me. CEOs, BCBAs, presenters. I see wigs, big wigs. Fryman, myself, colleagues, conferences, BCBA students. Zoom leaders, everyday people. Good. Okay, these are really good guesses. Lots of people guessing students, BCBAs, colleagues, professors. All right. Okay, I'm trying to click again. Oh, I found it. Okay. I got it. Okay, great work, everyone. So, biggest guess, other presenters, BCBA students, colleagues, professors. I'm gonna tell you who. Through the study that I showed you at the beginning, the second phase of that study, we did some structured interviews, and we were able to identify the most frequent speakers in our field, and those words came from these people. So Pat Fryman, Greg Hanley, Linda LeBlanc, Tristram Smith, Tim Hackenberg, Dave Palmer, Jim Carr. willy-dilly on, all of the big names in our field. So that's pretty good. Like, that's pretty good IOA, and you all are in pretty great company, because the individuals that we interviewed said a lot of the same things that you all said in terms of what you think of when it comes to public speaking. Now, I only put up the things that they said that were around negative things. They also said things like it's an opportunity, and, you know, it's exciting and it's fun as well. I just, you know, I wanted to paint a darker picture, so I picked those responses. So this is the point at which most of my colleagues, when they're talking about this topic, will tell a personal story that usually really connects with folks in the audience. They'll tell a story about their own crippling or debilitating anxiety or fear around public speaking, or they'll talk about a public speaking event that didn't go well and that kind of they were punished for, or maybe a supervisor that didn't support them. I can't share that experience with you all. I am a born attention seeker. I was a drama kid, if you can't tell. I don't get uncomfortable. I don't get embarrassed. So I don't have that connection. But I can share a story about an assumption that I made around public speaking that was really meaningful to me. So, and I have permission to share this story. So I was talking with Dr. Linda LeBlanc, who is both a mentor to me. She's a past supervisor. She's a very good friend of mine and just an all-around pretty glorious human being. And we were talking to some other individuals, some other colleagues, and people were sharing about, you know, how public speaking made them feel. And I said, well, you know, like folks like me and Linda, we don't really, like, I don't know that we connect with that. And I'd known Linda at this point for years. I'd presented with her, I'd trained with her, I traveled and presented in other countries, like under stressful conditions. And she looked like I had slapped her across the face. And this is someone that I love and respect, and I clearly had done something wrong. So I immediately said, I don't know what I did that was wrong, but please help me fix it. Like, what happened? What did I do? And she said, I have massive anxiety and fear around public speaking, and I always have. And I have it to this day. I just manage it. Public speaking and all of the things around public speaking are just behaviors, and I had to learn how to manage all of that. But I'm not, it's uncomfortable for me to hear you lump me in with yourself that way. Like, just because someone is proficient at something or really good at it doesn't mean that it comes easy, which was really informative for me, because I definitely before that probably would have been like, oh, you know, some people are good speakers and some people aren't. And that's not very behavior analytic of me. So it was a really meaningful experience, and kind of started this bigger conversation about what's going on in our field around public speaking and supporting folks. And are we professors and mentors and supervisors doing a good enough job training and supporting folks? So we started looking at what's out there. There's a little bit of research out there. There's some research out there around anxiety related to public speaking. There's some research out there around reducing the use of filler words, things like like, you know, which sometimes I think function to connect, sometimes I think function as pauses to think about the next thing you're going to say, but sometimes they function as disfluencies, meaning they interrupt the sort of natural flow of information or back and forth in a conversation. So there's a little bit of research out there. There's not a lot of research in our field around issues with public speaking or how to teach good public speaking. Now, there's a ton outside of our field, don't get me wrong. There's entire professions around communications, which is great, and we can draw from that. We did want to look a little bit about, look at a little bit disfluencies and filler words. And so Meg Heineke, my co-author and colleague, she does quite a bit of work with her lab around this. Ray Miltenberger's done some work around this. So some of the strategies to address that are evidence-based to address how to reduce use of filler words, include things like getting specific feedback, having somebody right there. So for instance, I might have a bug in the ear, and every time I say Erin might be there to say in my ear. So I would learn to attend to it. It's sort of I just did it there, but it's sort of like awareness training, right? So you get that specific feedback so you can engage in awareness training, and just generally specific feedback. Maybe instead it's a little delayed. Maybe Erin's going to count the number of times I say and then let me know that at the end. There also are studies around tactile, auditory, and visual stimulus prompts. So a tactile prompt, like a vibrating pager or something like that. So every time I say or ah or do whatever other thing it is. So I used to have a bob, and I had this really bad habit. I would put my hair behind my ear and pull it out, put it behind my ear and pull it out all the time. I had to really work to not do that. So it might not just be a speech thing. So I might receive some sort of tactile prompt via a message and have my phone set on vibrate, or an auditory cue, or a visual stimulus that just goes up at the back of the room, something like that. Performance data, seeing my data graphed, goal setting and performance data. And there's some newer studies that will be out hopefully soon around video self-scoring and awareness training, watching yourself, video modeling, watching someone else, and then watching yourself. So we have some strategies for how to deal with overuse of filler words in a way that makes it such that the audience can't connect, or that it disrupts the flow of what you're saying. So that's cool. We also have this great paper from Pat Fryman. If you haven't read it, you should grab it. It should be available free now because it's long enough. So this article gives 15 or 16, I think it might actually be misnumbered, ideas or tips around how to engage in good public speaking. If you've never seen Pat Fryman speak, please go if you ever have an opportunity, or watch any one of the videos that are out and will be coming out where he's speaking. He's really lovely and very inspirational. So this is great information. And he's incredible. And these are great tips, but these don't necessarily work. Some of these tips, I think, don't quite work for everyone. For example, he talks sort of about kind of how you come into the room, right? Like start at the back and walk in. That wouldn't work for me. I would trip and fall on my face 5 feet into walking into the room. Like I can't, that's not a strategy I can use. So whereas I appreciate his treatment of this topic, I think some of these strategies are things that are a little bit difficult for some of us. And some of them are also very topographical, like dress for the occasion. It's totally true. It's appropriate to consider your audience, consider the context. But I think there are other tips and strategies that we need to be talking about in our field that maybe are a little bit more maybe discreet and specific than these tips. So it's a great paper. Read it. I love it. Read it multiple times. Read it as a group. He does have more, yes. So someone's chatting in. There's an additional set of tips that he has for folks. And again, phenomenal public speaker. So we had a couple of research questions. What sorts of things might we want to target? And what do successful speakers in our field do? I'm going to go through the study stuff really fast because I want to get to the tips and tricks. So in phase 1, we did a survey. We had 836 people complete the entire survey. We had a really good response. A small percentage didn't complete it all. So we just dropped those and only used those with 100% completion rate. So in terms of demographic information, questions around public speaking and characteristics, most folks were between 25 and 44. Most of them were women. Most of them, I think, were 5 years experience, something like that. Most of them engaged in what they felt was public speaking at least monthly. And they define public speaking pretty broadly, including things like IEP meetings and small staff trainings, right, which is great. And things that they wanted to work on were things like rate, filler words, and reliance on notes. So we asked, if you could work on something around your public speaking, what would it be? And those were the things that they felt they needed the most improvement around. Here are some of the indications of how they were engaging in public speaking. Yes, thank you, Celia. Behavioral Podcast does have an episode with Fryman. Ryan O'Donnell has a great video that he prepped for CalABA that y'all should watch. It's a beautiful speech that Fryman gives. It's hard to watch it and not cry. Okay, so then in phase 2, we did our best at trying to figure out a way to identify top speakers in our field. So we looked at the most invited speakers in large venues, ABA-I, APBA, CalABA, FABA, maybe Babbitt, right? The places that, events that are getting 2,000 attendees, that sort of thing. And then we coded in a specific way for how we could determine. And these are the individuals that we interviewed. If you have the pleasure of knowing Tristram Smith, you know he's no longer with us. So this is also an opportunity for us to be appreciative of the work that he did in our field and honor his memory. So we interviewed them. It was really fun. We asked a bunch of questions. We asked them, how do you prep? Do you rely on scripts? Do you use notes? Do you ever present to non-behavioral audiences, and what do you do differently? What kinds of things do you think are important for a good speaker? We asked them what kinds of things they saw that they thought was indicative of a poor speaker, someone who wasn't very effective. And then we asked advice around training folks and if they could give just one piece of advice, and we asked them who they thought folks should go see. We coded we transcribed the interviews. That was a pain. If you've ever done transcription research, sorry, it's not fun. And then we actually did IOA on our transcription, so we did pretty well with that. We also did some qualitative coding, which I had no idea about, and that is some difficult stuff. But we were coding essentially for descriptive codes and themes, and then pulled out some specific statements that they made that went along with those themes. So this is just an example of the way that we would have coded for things around what's their philosophy around using visual aids. Sorry, those were some extra prompts. So I thought this was really cool to pull out. We asked them, is it important to be an effective speaker for behavior analysts? Like, does it even matter? Maybe we don't even care about this stuff. And those are some of the answers that we got. I always out Dr. Linda LeBlanc because I'm not technically supposed to, but I asked her if I could. She's the one who said hell yes, which I love. Hell yes, it's important to be an effective public speaker as a behavior analyst. And that is her subsequent statement on the bottom. You might be the only behavior analyst that an individual with whom you're communicating is ever going to meet. That means that you are the link to our field, our science, their ability to accessing improvements in life and their environment. So don't screw it up. So no pressure there from Dr. LeBlanc. So most of them said yes. A few said depends. You know, we had a couple people that were sort of like, you know, I mean, if you're not, maybe you're an experimental person and you're with the rats and you don't really do a lot of presenting, like maybe it's not. Okay, I can appreciate that. So these are some of the things that they noted as most important vocal verbal behavior in their opinion. Things like having intonation in your speech, having inflection or varied prosody. So people that speak very monotone can be really hard to listen to for periods of time. They can be hard to connect with. Making sure that people have an appropriate volume, not too loud, not too low, talking to the audience, with the audience, not at them. So having some sort of way to connect in a conversational way. Enunciating, not mumbling or dropping off words. Having good pacing, and then being able to be flexible, right? Improvisation or adapting when things don't quite go your way. Then we also asked what they felt the most important non-vocal verbal behaviors were. And they said things like smiling, appropriate posture, effective use of hands, which if you ever saw Talladega Nights, it automatically makes me think of like, I don't know what to do with my hands. But I think that's true, right? Sometimes it feels a little weird, and you might go for like gripping the podium and like white knuckling it the whole time, which comes off to your audience as like you're barely holding it together. Or you might be making big gestures that are distracting and hard for the audience to follow maybe what's on the slides because they're watching you. Making effective use of the podium, so not leaning on it, things like that. Making eye contact, facing and scanning the audience, which can be tough sometimes depending on just how a room is set up. And then if you're going to use a laser pointer, be good at it or don't use it at all, which means you probably should practice, because particularly if you are someone who experiences physiological responses to public speaking that include tremors, which you can't control. Don't be mad at yourself for that. That's not like, that's just how your body is made. It's going to be hard for you to use a laser pointer well. So Dr. Sarah Bloom, she was the first person that coached me on using a laser pointer in a big presentation. And she said, if you've never used it before, what you do is you'll hold it in your hand and then you put your other hand underneath to stabilize. And it works really well. And now I don't have to do that anymore, but I had that tip, so that was cool. We also asked them what were some errors that they frequently saw or that they're often working with their students to correct. And you know, they called out other presenters in their interviews not being prepared. You know, someone said, I see people at conferences and they're like finishing their talk in the talk before their talk. And so I think your level of preparedness depends on you, depends on the topic. There are some things that I could give an extemporaneous talk about and feel quite comfortable, and I don't think it would come off as unprepared. There are other talks that I would need to prepare for maybe a month or two before I gave it, because I would want to make sure I had the message right, I had the data right, I had the words right. They talked about, again, folks that speak to the audience, at the audience, right? Not like connecting with the audience. Too much text on slides, everybody said that. Reading from scripts, that was also like a huge one. Too technical, too many filler words, and listening to yourself too much. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So these are some of the just summary points that I've already chatted about. Okay, one thing that they were really clear about is that they thought it was important to tell a story, have a message, identify something meaningful to you. If it's passionate for you, if it's meaningful for you, you will bring that to your talk, even if you're nervous. And after the first few minutes when you simmer down, that's going to come through. So if you have that to connect back to, it will help you sort of stay centered in your talk, and it makes it easier for the audience to connect with you. So some of the things that they talked about were, you know, like tell the audience or let the audience know why they should care about what you're talking about. What's the take-home point? Think about how you want to make them feel, not just what you want to make them think about. What level of detail do they need? What level of technical jargon? So make sure that you are always telling your story in a way that your audience is most likely to receive the message that you're trying to send. So, you know, if I think about, I like to cook. And so I think about a lot of these things in terms of cooking analogies. And I think if I'm inviting someone to share a meal with me, and I want them to enjoy it, and I'm pretty sure they don't like spicy food, I'm not going to cook with a lot of spice. If they're somebody that tells me that cilantro tastes like soap to them, even though I love cilantro, I'm not going to use cilantro, right? Think about your presentations in the same way. It's okay to swap out terms. It's okay to drop behavioral jargon for non-behavior analytic audiences. It's okay to show that you are passionate and that you care about a topic. And it's all right to flub up and make mistakes and just keep going. We're all human. So the experts talked a lot about the use of notes. Some of them said sort of like, I have them. Pat Fryman said, I have it completely scripted out and I just need to have them there. I don't ever look at them. It's like my security blanket. I know they're there. People said, you know, reading is boring to listen to. I get that. something that Linda LeBlanc shared, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a few slides, but really working to create your own interverbal skills. And so one of the things I love about Linda is that she always has a really elegant behavioral explanation for things that I don't necessarily think of in behavioral terms. So we were talking about things, and I was talking about, like, I don't like scripts because if I mess up, I will try to get those scripted words back. But if I just have several different ways of saying the same thing, I've got more responses in my repertoire. So if I trip up on this one, I can pick another word. If I don't get it out quite right, I have another way to get there. And when I say this thing, then it kind of is an interverbal chain, and it evokes the next response, the next idea, the next topic, the next thing I want to talk about. She was, but I didn't say chains and I didn't say interverbals. I was just kind of discussing. She's like, yeah, you want to create loose interverbal chains in your repertoire so that your flow continues. And if your slides don't work, you're going to be able to keep talking about it because you have those loose interverbal chains that you've created. So brilliant. Things like your computer not being available, not working, or you can't present from your computer and you don't know how to make the presenter notes show up. So you might not always have access to your scripts. What everybody really shared is create your slides to be your scripts so that you don't have to read it. Have visuals and have enough words that allow you at a quick glance so that you don't have to read it and then think about how you're going to say it. Just a quick glance, you see that word script and I know what I want to say. So I have a few more slides on this because I think it is really important. If you feel like you have to script things, you should memorize it 100% so that you do not need the script in front of you at all for all of the reasons I mentioned. It might not be there. Most people think that because they can read well out loud. And those are two different skills. You'll know this because you all have probably seen, like, Uncle Larry tries to read a story to the kids and he like does all the voices and it's like, you know, really he gets into it. And then, you know, Uncle Bob reads it and it's really staccato and it's kind of boring and he doesn't do the voices. So they both are great readers, but one of them reads well out loud. And to be able to read something in a way that makes it sound extemporaneous, makes it sound like you just made it up right now, is very difficult. And that's a skill and a craft that some people take, you know, years and years to study and learn how to do. So you're never gonna read it well, I promise you. It's just not gonna happen. So if you really need to have it scripted, memorize it. Better yet, just memorize the first couple slides and the last couple slides. Memorize the first couple minutes and the last couple minutes, because the first few minutes are when your nerves are forward, right? They're when they're at strength. It's when your voice is cracking. It's when your hands are really sweating. But once you get into your groove, most speakers are fine. They hit their stride. They can start to breathe. They can control their diaphragm better now. The tech is working. Everything's going okay. So if you need to do it, memorize it or just memorize the first few bits. I always have more too, Todd. Always, always, always. Has there been feedback about not being technical enough? I don't think so. Not so much. You know, probably in presentations like in my research lab as a professor, I might have given feedback like stop using mentalistic terms in that environment. But then what happens sometimes is we forget to train grad students that they have to, don't lose that. Like I want you to have some stimulus equivalence. I want you to talk about extinction, but I also want you to talk about, you know, no longer feeding the monster, or however you want to explain it to a parent without using the word extinction. And other people, what is listening to yourself? I'm going to talk more about that in a second, because that's something that Tim Hackenberg said that was just like for me. Okay, but if you are going to use scripts, try to fade them out. Use the strategies that we know that work. Do script fading, you know, back to forward, fade it down to main points, fade it down to one word that you can have on your slide. Then your slide is your script. It serves as an initial stimulus prompt to get you going. Okay, I'm probably close to running out of time. That's okay. Okay, interverbal chains, a little bit more about that. I really love this idea of practicing your talk so that all of the things that you have to say, you can say them in a couple of different ways. That way, again, if you trip up on one, you're going to have others that are at strength. You're not going to have to go back and say it in that exact way. And what I like to do, and what Linda and some of the other speakers do, is actually, before we even start typing things, we look for visuals to evoke the main message or the feeling that we have or want to have when we're talking about a topic. So like for this one, there's a picture of chains. So that's easy. I can talk about interverbal chains and how if I say one thing, it's the link to the next thing, which is the link to the next thing. It makes sense to me. It doesn't always have to make sense to the audience. It's nice if it does. But the visual should really function as that stimulus prompt for you to say the things about this topic. So I spend a ton of time looking for visuals for my talks. The way that the audience should interact with visuals really should be about how they feel, or kind of how they're anchored in the idea that you're talking about. So it might evoke feelings. You might be talking about anxiety and you post a picture of someone in distress, right? You might be talking about calming down and you put up a picture of, like, you know, a beautiful lake that's very serene. Because most of us, there are some stimulus equivalences happening there, and some of those visuals are going to evoke certain feelings. Or it might help clarify an idea, or you might think, well, if they picture this thing, they're probably going to bring about some of this verbal behavior that they experienced when I talked about it. Okay, so self as listener when speaking. This concept, I think, is really, really cool. I'm the speaker, you are the audience, but I have to be not only a speaker in that relationship, but also a listener for you all. If I could see all of you, I would be looking for head nods, furrowed eyebrows, people laughing, people smiling, people getting distracted. So I'm not only a speaker to you, but in our relationship, I'm somewhat of a listener. What kind of non-vocal verbal behavior are you giving me to indicate that you understand what I'm saying, that we're connecting? But then I'm also a speaker, and I'm also a listener to my own verbal behavior. And I'm a listener to my vocal verbal behavior and my internal verbal behavior. So I'm both listening to the words that I'm saying to you all. Am I saying the right words? Did I stumble? Am I saying it fast enough, slow enough? Do I have enough intonation? I'm checking in on all of those things. And that's about the right level. But if I start thinking, oh my God, but I stuttered on that word and I said the wrong word, and I started to say Aunt Greg instead of Uncle Greg, and if I get caught up and I listen too much, if I'm too much as self as a listener, I'm going to get bogged down on the non-functional things. And I'm going to perseverate on those, and that's going to get in the way of my message. Likewise, I'm thinking in my head, right, my own private covert verbal behavior. I hope they find some of these things interesting. Am I saying things that are meaningful, right? I'm having those thoughts. If you're someone that suffers from imposter syndrome, you might be having thoughts about that. So if you listen too much, it pulls you away from being able to be the speaker, being able to be the listener for your audience. So you have to constantly have this right balance of, I have to be the speaker, I have to listen to my audience, I have to listen to what's coming out of my mouth, I have to listen to what's in my head, but I have to be able to adjust the volume and the level of focus so that I'm not becoming so tuned in to what's happening up here, what's happening right here, that I'm missing out on what's happening out there, because that's the most important connection. So this whole idea that, you know, we have these multiple listener-speaker relationships happening at different levels, when Tim Hackenberg talked about it, I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so brilliant. So you do need to thank your brain for those thoughts. And you need to think about the fact that those thoughts really are functional, right? They serve to check in, like, oh, thanks, brain, for reminding me to be humble when I think this is bullshit and they're all going to realize that I don't know what I'm talking about, right? So I can thank my brain for the function of the imposter syndrome thoughts, keeping me humble. And then that's it. Just let it go. Oh, thank you, brain, for pointing out that I stumbled on the aunt, uncle name thing and that was stupid. But people do that all the time, and I'm pretty sure no one's going to beat me up about it. It's fine. Thanks for that. So I love that. Oh, yeah. And look, I wore this shirt in honor. It says, humble. Be humble. Okay. So, or humble bee, maybe. All right, moving along. So these are just some numbers to let you know how people felt, the experts, how they felt about public speaking. 100% of them said that they experienced anxiety or nerves around public speaking ever. Most of them said they still do. A few said they don't really anymore. And I can share that those are individuals who grew up speaking in public a ton and have very, very highly developed repertoires and generally don't have a lot of anxiety about other things either. So that makes sense that they really don't, and they do it all the time. But I thought that was pretty amazing that most of them have ever and do still, and were even willing to share that with us, which is pretty fantastic. So that's all of these folks. All right, so here are a couple of strategies for dealing with anxiety. Man, oh man, it's already 6:25. You can visit the day before, walk around, check stuff out, do whatever you need to do to increase your familiarity with your surroundings. The day of, right before, get there a little early if you can. You know, when I was new at presenting research, I wasn't nervous about public speaking, but I felt like I needed some people that I could connect with to make sure that I was doing okay. And so I specifically asked people to sit in certain seats, and I saved them. I went ahead of time, I put stuff on them, and I had like my professor sit in one place and a fellow student sit in another and a colleague sit in another, so that I knew at different times I could check, did I get that right? And I would get that feedback from them, you know, like, yeah, and they knew. So use those strategies for yourself. Folks are always willing to help out with that stuff. You can review your slides. If you're really nervous, just practice those first few minutes. Just get that fluent. That's it. Get the ball rolling. I really loved this idea from Dr. Carr. Don't engage in behaviors that produce physiological responses. Don't move around the furniture. Don't carry all your stuff. Don't take the stairs instead of the elevator. And here's why. You're going to experience physiological arousal responses like an increased body temperature, increased respiratory rate. You're going to breathe faster. Your heart's going to beat faster. Your blood pressure is going to go up. You might sweat. But I guarantee that none of you are going to say, oh, my body is working really well. I'm having physiological arousal responses to moving around 30 chairs. You're going to attack that as, I'm so freaking nervous right now. Your brain is going to do a trick on you, and it's not going to tact accurately. You're going to tact it as, I'm nervous, I'm not good enough, this isn't going to go well, and that's not what you want to be doing. So avoid that stuff. Borrow your friends, have someone else move the chairs around for you. And Pat Fryman says, reframe your fear, your nervousness as excitement, right? Oh, I'm so anxious right now. Well, how about if you said, I'm so excited right now? I think that can work for some people. Do some breathing exercises and listen to music if you're someone that connects with music. I happen to be pretty visual, so before a presentation, when I'm going through my slides, I put pictures in of things that I love, so that's very calming for me to see those things. Know your relevant anxiety-producing contexts and practice. It may be that you don't get stressed in large groups, but small groups freak you out. It may be that you don't have an issue with presenting in person, but presenting online when you can't see faces and there's no one there to like connect with you and give you feedback. Maybe that freaks you out. So find those opportunities and practice. So we just have a few slides left. Some of the skills that we found out that we should be targeting: addressing filler words, and we know how to do that. Addressing how folks can minimize their heavy reliance on scripts or text heavy slides where they end up reading for the audience. Like, pretty sure most of us are presenting to audiences that can read for themselves. Rates of speech, people talking too fast or too slow. Some of the other things we're working on the right balance of humor and minimizing fidgeting. I'm a fidgeter, big time. So, and then think about the context as well, not just at conferences, in meetings, in group supervision, in staff training, in IEP meetings. All of those are places that you can conceptualize as public speaking opportunities and work on these skills. So these are just some free pieces of advice from those speakers. Don't read things, memorize if you have to. Simplify, practice, practice, practice. Be authentic. All of them said, take every public speaking opportunity that you possibly can get. Take them all and do them all. Main themes that they talked about, you know, make sure that you think of this as a skill set that you can work on. Be prepared. Engage in perspective taking from your audience's perspective, and make sure that you are authentic the way that you're delivering your message. These are some of the folks that they said that they wanted you all, us all, to go see, people they think are great speakers. I actually was going to do a poll, but go ahead and just type it in the chat so everybody benefits. Nominate who you think now are great speakers. Not to say that, oh, thanks, Erin. Not to say that we are old, but most of the folks that were interviewed and that are on this list are in my age group or older. And there are plenty of tremendous behavior analysts that are rocking public presentations left and right now. So help your colleagues out so that when they have to pick these kinds of events and go to conferences, they know who to go listen to. So chat all of that in there. Oh my God, Evelyn Gold, yes. Yes, I love those suggestions. Okay, also, couple last points and then we're done. These are just a few things that I think are really important that could be whole separate talks. But be mindful about your platform when you are public speaking. Do you have diversity in images? What do those faces look like? Do you have brown faces, yellow faces, white faces? Do you have individuals that are gender non-conforming? Do you have language that is inclusive? Those are all really important small things that you can do to make space for other folks and normalize images that people see. Better yet, can you co-present? Can you invite someone who doesn't necessarily have the same social political capital that you have? Can you invite them and share your space with them? Use a mic if you're public speaking in a venue. Don't do what I used to do. I used to say, I've never been accused of having, you know, a low voice or not being loud enough. I'm sure people can hear me. And then someone with a hearing deficit said, you know, when you do that, it means I have to advocate for myself and ask for you to use a mic. And if I'm not comfortable sharing that, I'm not going to hear everything. So just use the mic. And also my hearing impaired friends all say, repeat audience questions. Always, always repeat audience questions, because people with hearing deficits don't often hear what folks have said. And then think about visual accessibility. I fail in this endeavor because I care maybe more about like the aesthetics of my slides than I do about how visually accessible they are. So I would love feedback if anybody has, but I think thinking about visual accessibility is really important. Just a couple of quotes. Take every opportunity to present in front of people. That's from one of our experts. And all the great speakers were bad speakers at first, said Ralph Waldo Emerson. So with that, I actually am 2 minutes over, but not really, because Erin and Kristen took some time at the beginning. So I know I spoke really fast towards the end. Please feel free to email me if you have questions. I gave these slides to Erin in a PDF format, but if you want access to them, you know, in their actual PowerPoint format, just let me know. I'm happy to share. And Erin, let me know. You can feel free to just give them that link, unless you have another way that you want to disseminate the PowerPoint.
I'm going to email all that. I'm going to email all that out. I'm also going to put in the chat box too the form that you all will need to complete the exit survey with the questions. I'm also going to email that out with the PowerPoints that you put as well, and then hopefully get this uploaded to our website tonight and then link to that as well. I don't know if that will happen, but so I put in a Google Doc for you all. Make sure you fill that out within 48 hours. I will also email it out with your information. I will convince you to come back for round 2 because I think
all right.
it's what the people want. Oh, we have an exit poll. Hang on real fast. Don't go anywhere. Let me see if I can do this. Okay.
You can
answer
do
that question. You know, now that you've heard all of this information, what is your comfort level with public speaking? Now, knowing that you have like this set of tools to go to, I don't know, some of these things that you said were absolutely phenomenal for me. So, perfect.
Yay.
Oh, can everybody see the poll?
Oh, people are putting their answers in the chat, but you should have access to the poll. Did it pop up on your screens? Like it did at the beginning? Some people said yes, some people said no.
Huh, interesting. Okay, well, I don't know what happened. I don't know, Chris and I are logged in on the same account. It's there, yeah, I don't know. Interesting, I don't know.
Okay,
Because I'm not seeing that people have answered, but it seems that it's working. So thank you all so much. We've got some others. Make sure you follow us, and there are other ones to register for. Maybe put all that stuff on our website too. But thank you all so much. This was great. We'll get your CE certificates out. Make sure you fill that form out. Thank you, Tyra, so much. It was awesome.
Virtual hug for everybody.
Yes.
Can't infect you this way. All right.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, everyone. Take care. Thank you.